2021 is finally over, and while many people might be glad it's over, for me, this year a lot of great things happened for me. New opportunities opened up, new opportunities I was able to do that helped with my dreams, or it was simply an honor to be a part of. While it's easy to look back at what was the worst that the year offered, it's even hard to look back at what was the best the year offered, since it's hard to think what were some of the best things to come out of 2021. So many experiences, so many memories. It might not be something everyone will look back on fondly, but for me, in 2021, I was able to do so much even with so little at hand. One of my favorite things of 2021 were the movies I saw. This year I saw more new movies come out during their release dates than any year prior, and I'll get to why in a bit. But I just want to say, I am thankful I was able to watch as many movies in 2021 as I did. 2021, or 2021, for many might not be one of cinema's best years, but for me, I saw so many new stories given life on the big screen, or still be able to shine on a small screen at home. The TV's in this direction, that's why I'm moving to this way. I love film more than anything, and after a year of watching so many new movies, so many great movies to come out, it's hard to pick what will be the top 10 films I saw in 2021. I saw over 123 films this year. I know I got a lot going for me. And most of them were at home, considering streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV Plus, Amazon Prime. They were all exclusive films, and with HBO Max and Disney Plus doing same-day releases in theaters and streaming, at least for the latter for the most part of the year, I was able to see like 3 to 5 films a week, and so many movies came out online since maybe people weren't ready to go back into theaters. I feel like when I hear anyone say film is dying, it won't be true. Watching movies on the big screen will never die, because the visual wonder, the immersive feeling, the stories that deserve your full attention and respect, it might not be something everyone agrees on, but if you know that feeling, you know why you love to watch movies, and I know why I love to talk about movies. I started to write movie reviews for everything I saw this year because I wanted to talk about what I got out of the movies I saw, what I loved, what I hated, what makes me think, what makes me feel. Watching over 123, I realized how much I love writing movie reviews. And when I write something I'm passionate about, I know I'm doing something right. I feel like with every review I wrote, I became a better writer, and I learned more about film, about what kind of stories could be told, what hasn't been told yet. And as someone who dreams to be a filmmaker, I'll look back on 2021 as the year I realized when in the future new opportunities open up, I'll look back and say these movies showed me what makes a great movie. I wanted to choose films that compared to last year where I just went with what I think critically was the best. And don't get me wrong, I don't regret my choices. But here, I just want to choose the films, not what is critically the best or what everyone would want on my list, but what I feel like are movies that I learned from, made me happy, made me sad, something worth my time, and something I wanted to revisit in the future, or completely different reasons. Who knows? I do. I'm about to tell you. The future awaits, and new opportunities will still open up, but 2021 in film influenced me so much. And I hope you enjoy my choices for the top 10 films of 2021. Number 10, The Sparks Brothers. I think the best way for you to know whether or not you like this movie is to look up the trailer to know if this is your thing or not. And if it's not, I hope why I picked this can help persuade you to watch it, not anything else. The Sparks Brothers is a documentary film from Edgar Wright. His first documentary, while you would know him for directing great films like Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Baby Driver, and so forth. Here he presents a 2.5-hour long documentary following the life and careers of Ron Mel and Russell Mel, who some might know them for the rock duo band Sparks. And when I say some, keep that in mind since that's part of the story. The Sparks Brothers follows the story behind your favorite band's favorite band, as it shows their beginnings to several different songs and albums made over the years as they try to reach mainstream success, and while that they had existed for decades, they never truly reached mainstream success. But that's what's great about the film, is that it can prove to anyone is that it really doesn't matter. Between great editing and transition to truly make it you want to know more about an interesting real-life story rather than watching a history lesson in school, they are interviews Between producers, musical icons, and celebrities you probably know of such as Beck, Weird Al, Jane Wielden, Steve Jones, John Taylor, Neil Gaiman, and dozens more talking about not only why they love Sparks, but their music and how they influenced them more so than others might know. It's also a great time listening to so many songs, the process behind it, and the end result, alongside how it puts a smile to so many people's faces. The film's a great time. Even if by the end of it you don't become a fan of the band, it's an amazing story to learn about how even if you don't become famous or never become something everyone knows, it's amazing and important to see how far you come, getting to keep doing what you're doing and to have the fans you have and not even knowing who you might inspire one day. This documentary is a shining example of how to do a documentary right, and while it might be too long and the music to listen to isn't everyone's taste, it's a fun, interesting, intriguing tale and time to see what you might not know can inspire you and that anyone can make their dreams come true. Number 9. No Time to Die. I said this already when I reviewed this film, but if I had to give my opinion of the film in one sentence, I would say this. It starts off as the James Bond film we want and ends as the James Bond film we need. It's the 25th James Bond film, and the final thing, a great James Bond film after 4 prior films, which other than Dr. No, they were the only James Bond films I'd seen, and while I enjoyed them, I never really got into James Bond, which is, the spy movie franchise. And maybe I was just not looking in the right places, but here, this movie made me love James Bond. No Time to Die, directed and written by Cary Joji Fukunaga, co-written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Neil Purvis, and Robert Wade, come the first time that, at least I know of, a great send-off for James Bond. James Bond, played by Daniel Craig, left the agency after a massive event happens that leaves him confused and devastated. So it's years later, and James Bond enjoys retirement, but of course, he'll be appointed with one last mission. After infiltrating Spectre, James Bond learns about his most dangerous adversary yet, Safin, played by Rami Malek, whose evil plan friends all James Bond holds dear, so he teams up with old allies and new allies, reluctantly or willingly, to stop Safin and do what he can to save the world. The premise might not exactly be the most interesting story-wise for a James Bond film, but considering this being a 5-film arc for James Bond, it works as some of the most interesting character-driven choices I'd seen in a spy film in so long. It truly makes you feel like James Bond is vulnerable, he might lose, while not making sure to forget about the humor and charms that make Bond James Bond. The movie is also 2.5 hours long, and while I don't know how it will feel like watching this at home, in theaters, it went by so fast, without being poorly paced or losing focus. The movie has all the action and fun you expect in a James Bond film, but with a great character-driven story that easily overpowers what doesn't work about the film. By the end of the film, it got me to cry. And I knew then it was doing something right. It might not be the most rewatchable James Bond film, and as someone who hasn't seen all 25 movies, I doubt I can say it's the best, but I'll never forget watching this movie in theaters. And I'll never forget why this film made me realize James Bond is an important character in film. It might not be the James Bond film everyone wants, but for me at the very least, it's the James Bond film I needed. Maybe we all need it. Can't wait to see what they do with him in the future. Who knows then? Number 8. Luca. I'm glad I said I didn't put the movies I gave the most acclaim to on this list, because when this film came out, I thought this was really good, which may not sound like a bad thing, but let's just say I didn't think higher of it. But every time throughout the year I kept watching it, I really realized how great this film was. And while not the best of Pixar, I truly love this film, just like all their other movies. Luca is a Pixar animated film directed by Enrico Casarosa, written by Jesse Andrews, Mike Jones, and the story by Enrico Casarosa, Jesse Andrews, and Simon Stevenson, released exclusively to Disney+. And while I might not have seen this on the big screen, the small screen works just fine. Just like the story. Luca follows Luca. Makes sense. Voiced by Jacob Tremblay, a 12-year-old sea monster who lives under the sea with his family of sea monsters, while the world above fears sea monsters as well. Because they're monsters. And as Luca wants to obey his parents' wishes to not go above the water, he still remains curious of what's above. One day, he meets a sea monster around his age named Alberto, voiced by Jack Dylan Grazer, who shows him the wonders above, where without water, they become human. And as his more mischievous personality matches Luca's more nervous personality, they form a bond as they both dream to see the world, so they decide to do so by getting a Vespa. They travel to a small Italian town called Porto Rosso, where they learn about a race where the prize money could afford one, and team up with a human girl named Julia, voiced by Emma Berman, to compete. The two struggle to hide who they really are in front of town, and as time goes by, their friendships put to the test, and with many obstacles ahead, these new friends will have to work together to make their small town dreams come true. This movie isn't as grand of an adventure or complex as Up, Toy Story, Soul, Inside Out, or WALL-E, but that's not a problem. The movie is more straightforward and predictable than the other films from the studio, but that doesn't make it bad, because the end product shows that a smarter film doesn't make a lesser film. The movie has a relatable situation that comes from different characters about growing up and making relationships like Kiki's Delivery Service or My Neighbor Totoro, while still containing charm, humor, and heart. The story's not perfect, but I rewatched this film so many times, the bad parts become smaller and the good parts become bigger. This movie is gorgeous. Pixar is truly the best animation studio out there today. I got nothing more to say, and even if you don't love this movie as much as I did, it's easy to appreciate how the little things can lead up to the best of things. Number 7. Raya and the Last Dragon. It was a hard choice to choose between this or Encanto, both new Disney animated films of 2021, but you already know which one I liked more. Can you guess? This movie came out when Disney was doing a same-day release strategy in theaters with Disney+, but you would have to pay additional money for it. It was like $20 or $30 additionally with your Disney Plus subscription. And while I personally understand from a business perspective why, it definitely made people think lesser of the film upon its release. And yeah, I get people who said it was like, oh, it's not worth $20 or $30 more. I didn't watch this in theaters anyways. I wish I did though, because this is a great movie I rewatched a lot throughout this year and hope gets more attention. Directed by Don Hall and Carlos Lopez Estrada and written by people whose names I will not pretend I can pronounce, so I'm just going to put them here. And story by way too many people to mention. That is a lot. Disney's animated action fantasy adventure film follows Raya, voiced by Kelly Mary Tran. Or is it Kelly Mary Tran? Raya and the Last Dragon is about Raya, the young adult warrior who, years after a great betrayal towards her by someone who released a dark plague that turns anyone who comes in contact with it into a stone statue, Raya sets out to find the last hope to save the world, a mystical dragon named Sisu, voiced by Awkwafina, who vanquished the plague before but went missing afterwards. After finding Sisu and letting her know how awful the world's become, Raya and Sisu team up to go from land to land, making new friends and enemies along the way with their different viewpoints and having too much or too little trust get in the way as they have to save the world before no one is left to save it. Okay, sorry, that was a lot to say. This movie is awesome! And I mean it. The action is great. It's so fluent. It's so clean. One of the best action movies in recent memory that doesn't try to be self-aware or hokey, while also making sure Awkwafina has much humor as she gives heart to her character. The dynamic between her and Raya is great, and while not one of the best messages about trusting others ever made, it's understandable and helps define both characters. The animation is phenomenal. At times, I thought I was looking at the real world, like the trees or the waterfalls. I love looking at the movie. Each land is unique. Each character stands out. Maybe it's not the most original action movie, and not every choice made in the film makes sense. I love so much about this film. I don't care. The action, the humor, the characters, the acting, the heart put into the film. It's a great movie that can interest anyone of any age, and I hope more people can appreciate the film by trusting me when I say they should watch it. So go watch it. Number 6, West Side Story. I'm not the biggest fan of movie musicals. Not to say I don't like movie musicals, far from that, but I'll admit this was a good year for movie musicals, like In the Heights and Tick Tick Boom. Both excellent films I also recommend. And my favorite from this year is a remake of a movie already considered a classic and somehow done even better. I never actually watched the original adaptation of West Side Story from 1961 or seen the original Broadway show, but I heard of it, of course, and went into this film just knowing a couple things, but practically blind to all the characters and story. This film was directed by the great Steven Spielberg, surprisingly his first musical, written by Tony Kushner, based on a show by, according to Wikipedia, listed all together, so even though they did all different additional things, I'm just saying this to save time. In fact, I just talked too much, I probably didn't. Jerome Robbins, Leonard Bernstein, Stephen Sondheim, and Arthur Lawrence. West Side Story 2021 is the same premise, but going to this line, this was new for me, so... During the late 50s in Manhattan's West Side is a gang of white youth boys called the Jets who fight for control and give disrespect to the Sharks, who are Puerto Ricans who came to America for new opportunities but face huge racism and backlash from Americans. During a social dance, a former Jet who wants to go straight named Tony, played by Ansel Elgort, meets Maria, played by Rachel Zegler, the sister to the leader of the Sharks, where they instantly fall in love with each other, which unintentionally creates bigger problems between the gangs, and with loyalty and relationships tested, Tony and Maria hope their love can shine through the tragedy that hopefully can be avoided. When people say this is a modern day Romeo and Juliet, I believe it, and every time I see so many people make new versions with the exact same dialogue or same scenes, West Side Story shows me what I want it to evolve into with modern day. As someone who never saw the original, this movie blew my mind since its story is so well told, remaining both simple and complex with great characters and understandable dilemmas, even the worst characters who do truly awful things you don't hate. Or at least I didn't hate. I don't know about your opinion. The film truly takes advantage of being on the big screen, with taking advantage of this not being a stage and being the streets of Manhattan with the dancing or the singing, not taking away the seriousness and the emotions of the story. And while these are songs that had existed for decades, hearing each of them for the first time, I fell in love with them. Every actor nails it, even Ansel Elgort, who I saw most criticism being pointed towards his performance, but I liked him. I liked everyone in this. The film cleverly uses no subtitles, so it feels like you're watching people just be people. I can't explain it better than that. I mean, I could, but I'm just not doing it. It's hard to explain. When it came out, I did love it, but I didn't think it was going to be on my list until I saw how important the story needed to be made today by people I did know who have seen the original. The thing is, while the importance of it wasn't what I got out of it, it definitely did help to push it be on this list. But see, the thing is, days after watching it, I couldn't stop thinking of the characters, the story, the dancing, the music. The film reminds me why Steven Spielberg is one of the best directors of all time. I understand why the story is considered a classic. On its own, West Side Story is a visual and dramatic wonder worthy of the big screen, and I recommend anyone with the smallest interest to watch. Number 5. Malignant. There were many movies this year I loved. But after a few days or weeks, I stopped thinking about them or realized as much as they blow me away when I saw them the first time, I didn't really care to watch again. But despite me only seeing this movie once, I never stopped thinking of it. Released the same day with HBO Max in theaters, which I watched on the former during early September, this R-rated horror movie didn't do well financially, but I can see this becoming a cult classic, and I hope more people give it a chance, even if it's a loved or hated film. Despite being early September, people around me already put up Halloween decorations, and I thought it was lame. It's too early. I'm not going to be in a Halloween mood this early. But watching this movie made me ready for Halloween to come. If you have any interest in this movie, stop reading / listening now. Please, go into this movie blind like I did. I didn't see the trailers, I knew nothing about the plot. It helps with all the more how bonkers and scary it is. The movie is directed by James Wan, written by Kelly Cooper, and story by Wan, Cooper, and Ingrid Bisu. I think I'm reading that right. To give some context, Malignant follows a pregnant woman named Madison, played by Annabelle Wallis, who, after an attack on her home, she starts to see visions of a killer and starts to become a part of a murder mystery more bigger and certainly more insane than she can imagine. This movie is great. I haven't enjoyed a brand new horror film this original, enjoyable, yet scary like this in a while. I say scary, but this movie isn't really the most horrifying thing for most of the film. But I love films where you're not sure of what you're watching or a mystery that I truly can't figure out. There were so many things happening. I didn't know what it would lead to. And what it might lead to is gonna be love it or hate it, because it's insane. One of the best reviews in horror that might not work for everyone, but I loved it because it actually horrified me. And I love watching a horror movie that is actually scary. I understand people who wouldn't like this movie, right? Be the tone or dialogue, but this movie does so much so right. I love the acting, the cinematography, clever choices made. Honestly, even though I don't know what I'll think of this film rewatching this movie hasn't left my mind since watching it. And I can't remember the last brand new horror film that terrified me, but left a smile on my face at the end. Number 4, Spider-Man No Way Home. I have no idea how to give this film a proper introduction, considering not only was this probably the most hyped film of the year, bar none, but most likely you'd already seen it, so I'm going to try to explain it if it were, say, years from now, and someone looked back upon it. I like Spider-Man / Peter Parker as a character, and I can't think of many superhero fans, if not any, who don't like Spider-Man. Seriously, do you know any? I have no idea. He's iconic, he's likable, he's one of the most famous superheroes of all time for a good reason. This movie reminds you of that reason. I'll say this, I doubt this works as a standalone film, not because of what the film is about, but this is a third film in the third Spider-Man series, also in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which I'm not saying anything bad about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you know what the MCU is about, you know. So sure, this might be one of its biggest downsides, but what's great about it, where do I begin? Directed by John Watts and written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers, the movie follows the events of Spider-Man Far From Home. Spider-Man No Way Home follows Spider-Man being unmasked to the world as Peter Parker, played by Tom Holland, after also being framed for several crimes. While Peter is able to convince May he's truly a good person, the problems and controversy of now being unmasked affects those closest around him, like his girlfriend MJ, played by Zendaya, as just one example. Peter decides a way to fix this would be to have everyone forget Peter Parker is Spider-Man, so he goes see Doctor Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, for help, who starts to create a spell to do so. But after some tampering with it, the spell backfires, and now villains from other worlds in the multiverse who know Peter Parker is Spider-Man appear, and Peter will soon learn what it truly means to be both Peter Parker and Spider-Man, because with great power comes great responsibility. I think. If you told me a couple years ago the third film in the MCU Spider-Man trilogy would be on this list, I wouldn't believe you because I'm not a fan of those other movies. They aren't bad, but I didn't get into them personally, and they felt like a step back from the other Spider-Man series. So here they bring back those villains from those Spider-Man series, like Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus, Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, Jamie Foxx as Electro, and a couple more. I think you can truly watch this movie without seeing the other films to understand who these characters are, and sure, if it wouldn't mean as much on its own, it still works in my opinion. Now this movie is far from perfect. It has a lot of plot holes and dumb choices made, but while I think years from now people point out the lesser parts, people will still celebrate the best parts about it. The acting, the action, the characters. Without giving away the story too much, it reminds me why I like Spider-Man, why he is a great superhero and a great character. I don't think this is the best Spider-Man movie ever made. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is very similar, but came out first, is still better in my opinion. But for all the stuff I didn't talk about, there's so much to love, so much to enjoy, so much to feel glad for, to feel sad for. The best of the film swings on to becoming one of the best films of the year. Number 3, The Suicide Squad. I was getting sick of superhero movies this year, since it started off with many bad superhero movies, and while many good superhero movies came out, a truly standalone sequel to a bad superhero movie is easily my favorite superhero movie of the year. One of my favorites in general even. Not only is the behind the scenes story amazing with James Gunn having so much support to make this film after what could have been the end of his career, but the end result is truly a reminder of what a good movie can do and should do. I saw this film on HBO Max instead of theaters just because I was too busy that weekend. I'm not going to go into more detail, but nevertheless, directed and written by James Gunn comes a DC movie where it truly feels like there weren't studio notes or forced changes, but just the angle to make a good movie, and for me, it succeeds. The Suicide Squad follows a group of incarcerated supervillains like Bloodsport, played by Idris Elba, or Harley Quinn, played by Margot Robbie, who are sent on a covert mission to lessen time on their sentences by Amanda Waller, who are forced to go to a foreign country to destroy something vital, but uncover something much bigger on the way. This movie, from the way it opens, that truly sets up the tone and unpredictability, truly shows this movie is doing what it wants to do. This movie is R-rated, and there is cursing, blood, it's very inappropriate. But for the mean-spirited characters at the center, it works. Each character, easily stands out. And what I love most about the movie is that it took joke characters like Polka Dot Man, played by David Dasmalkian, this guy's name, or unknown ones like Peacemaker, played by John Cena, and make them actually interesting and likable. Any good movie takes something that doesn't work and decides to improve upon it to make it mainstream and popular for new people. This movie does it great, and I loved every unique performance, like Daniela McGuire as Ratcatcher 2, or Sylvester Stallone voicing King Shark. It's pitch perfect casting, by the way. This movie's casting characters are also part of the action, the effects, the writing. The writing is so good, and while not everyone's taste, I loved it. It truly stands on its own, and I can't think of many problems with the film, as it truly shows how someone with a passion for what he or she does and letting them go all out can do. I wish more movies were like this, and if you skip this movie, please watch it. It deserves your attention. Number 2, The Mitchells vs. The Machines. For a while, this was my favorite movie of the year, and while I saw one film that took that spot, this movie still deserves all the love and respect I hope I can give it. Originally meant to be released in theaters in 2020 under the title Connected, with a trailer not doing the best job selling the movie, this film was picked up by Netflix, and while I didn't get to see it on the big screen, I'm just glad I got to see it, and that Netflix allowed the filmmakers to go with the title that better matches the tone of the film, which is what you know it as. Directed by Mike Rianda and written by Mike Rianda and Jeff Rowe, comes a Sony Pictures animated Netflix film that is the best animated film of the year. The Mitchells vs. the Machines follows the Mitchell family, particularly the father Rick, voiced by Dan McBride, and the daughter, Katie, voiced by Abby Jacobson. Katie is an aspiring filmmaker who loves technology and looks forward to more than anything to go to college and finally be with people who can relate to her, while her old school, nature-loving father struggles to see eye to eye with her as he struggles with having to let go of his daughter, so he has a plan. He has Katie join them on one last family vacation as a family road trip to her dream school, but on the way, the robot apocalypse happens. And the Mitchells must become a working family again after so long, as they must all come together to save the world. The message and story are a bit obvious, but I don't care. Any movie can be great. It just depends on what's the end product, and the end product delivers. I don't know if it's because as someone who is a 17-year-old aspiring filmmaker, I relate to this more personally, but it's not what works personally that works. The movie has so much heart to it. It's very likable. It's very hilarious. Something I think any family can watch together, and anyone of any age can enjoy. The animation is imaginative, and while not the most impressive, it's easily the most creative considering it was built off from Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where it combined 2D animation with 3D animation, and here it improves upon it, and it's truly unique. The story feels new, the characters are memorable, and it just works. It really, really works. I love looking at this movie. I love listening to the movie. It has heart. It has action. It has everything I want in a film and more. I was surprised this wasn't my favorite film of the year. Before I get to my number 1 movie, here is a list of my worst movies I saw this year. Now, granted, I didn't see all of the bad movies that came out because I like myself too much. I mean, who really wants to see bad movies? But here are mine. And also, here's a disclaimer. So if you like any of these movies that are on my bad movies list, too bad. Yeah, let's just get to them. Number 10, Clifford the Big Red Dog. Number 9, Hero Mode. Number 8, Halloween Kills. Number 7, The Woman in the Window. Number 6, Flora and Ulysses. Number 5, Home Sweet Home Alone. Number 4, The Addams Family 2. Number 3, Thunder Force. Number 2, The Boss Baby, Family Business. And my number 1 worst film of the year goes to Music. And now, here is my number 1 movie of 2021. Number 1, Pig. This is a movie I won't really rewatch a lot, at least not often, nor is it a film for everyone, but there's a reason why I choose it to be both personally and objectively the best film of 2021. This movie reminds me why I want to be a filmmaker. to tell a story that will make you feel emotional, make you feel what the movie wants you to feel, to be well told, where it feels like it's genius without knowing it, to be both a story interesting from the dialogue to the visuals. I love this movie because afterwards I know I want to make a movie like this movie and I'll never forget it. I didn't see it in theaters, which was distributed by Neon. I waited till December when it just happened to be on Hulu to watch it, and I'm glad I watched it. This movie is directed and written by Michael Sarnowski, with the story by Sarnowski and Vanessa Block, with this being also Sarnowski's theatrical debut as a director. I had much hype about this movie, and I went into it blind, and man, do I recommend going into it blind too, because this story blew my mind for reasons you might not even think of. Pig follows a recluse in the woods who works as a truffle hunter named Rob Feld, played by Nicolas Cage, who, after a personal loss, left everything behind and all he cares for now is his truffle hunting pig. After his pig is stolen, Robin gets help from a young supplier of the truffles he finds named Amir, played by Alex Wolff, to search for it in the city, which starts to reveal to Amir who Rob secretly was and leaves questions as to what might be Robin's fate after love and loss that will change both them afterwards. This movie isn't an action film. Don't expect Robin to fight anyone or something like that. Expect genius dialogue and completely originality watching this film. This movie shows how far words can go against using violence. The movie shows how far visuals can go for a movie since it says a lot without saying anything. Robin Feld is such a consistent and unique standout character that probably shows Nicolas Cage giving the best performance of his career, as it truly shows that while some people might recover from what he experienced, he didn't, and what it could lead to others to become. But it doesn't matter to Robin. Robin doesn't care what others think. He just wants his pig back, and you truly do care for him to get his pig back because the character and performance is practically flawless. I think Nicolas Cage could be nominated for an Oscar. That's how good it is. I want to make a movie like this, where I could be able to make you care about what I'm trying to tell, because I can see how much this is probably more complex than it even knows, and the shot of the ending of the film has not left my mind. I will never forget this movie because it inspires me to make something I wish one day could be just as good. As if a movie can do all that, it is truly a fantastic experience to be a part of. And I am glad to choose this as the best film of the year. Thanks for watching my best films of 2021 video, but I hope you enjoyed my choices. I'd love to hear what you guys have for your own choices. And at the end of the day, keep watching the movies you love.